Right, morning. Welcome everyone. Friday yet again. Can't believe it. Keep on trying to say no to these weeks going past so fast, but I haven't managed to slow it down at all. It just doesn't seem to make any difference. It just seems to go faster and faster. Someone once told me it's all relative. You know, the older you get, the shorter a year is relative to your age. So that's why it seems to go faster the whole time. But even the youngsters seem to say that it's going fast these days. So I don't know. I think we're just spinning out of control. So Lee, how do we say no to that?
There is a philosophical question for life. So thanks everybody. Great to see you all. So no. So this was a life lesson for me. Was learning to say no. Because I said yesterday that I'm a yes person, and that's brought tremendous opportunity and incredible gifts and learning along the way. And I'll continue to say yes, but I said yes to the detriment of myself for a period of time. And that came from FOMO, fear of missing out. I wanted to take advantage of everything that came my way. So if somebody said, would you do this? Can you go here? Can you speak here? Can you, whatever it was, I just put my hand up. And it just ended up having too many things on my plate. So that was the one reason, was fear of missing out. The other was I didn't want to let people down. So if they asked me to do something, I saw that as an obligation and something that was required of me because they'd asked. And so I took it on as a responsibility and a duty, and felt I couldn't say no. And so that was really trying to, not just wanting to let people down, but living up to other people's expectations. That they had a picture of who I was, and I needed to be that person and to deliver. And over and above that, I had to do it perfectly. So there was this expectation of myself that if I was required to do something, then it had to be done to perfection. And then the last thing is that I had this expectation of myself. So not only the perfection, but I had this inner critic in my mind that kept saying, well, Lee, you're not doing enough. You should be doing more. And all the shoulds and the musts and the requirements that I had of myself to live up to this completely unrealistic ideal of actually a non-existent person, because the person I was trying to be is not a human person. and all of those things combined with various health problems and everything actually led to burnout. And that was 2 years of what it was either a dark pit or a long desert. Those were the metaphors I lived with for a long period of time. But I was in my early 40s. So a good 12, 14 years ago. And I haven't gone back there again. There were lessons. So I learned many important lessons, but the key one was to say no. That the request was not the requirement, that I had to choose what was right for me and my family, and that was good. And it came back to what is good, what is important, and prioritizing and understanding myself, understanding my capabilities, but also my limits, and appreciating my limits without denigrating them. So I learned a lot from saying no, and I can honestly say I'm very good at it now. I feel I have very little guilt, and I'm better able to choose pathways that feel and are positive and life-giving. So that's not to say, you know, there's always, I'm not perfect in that way either. I've learned to accept my imperfections as well. So yeah, that's me. And so what's your journey been, or how has no worked in your life? Let's hear from you.
Great, thanks, Lean. That's just after I've received an email from Lee saying yes. So to a question that was asked. So Donovan, let's go across to you first this morning. Donovan, are you with us? Doesn't look like Donovan. Are you hearing me?
Thanks, Ivan. Thanks, Lee. Yes, I'm hearing. Gonna just have to speak a bit louder. Hope it's clear enough.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can just maybe share two instances. A friend of mine, we were students together. Years after we qualified, he asked his colleague to interview me to join their practice in the Eastern Cape. So I was based in Gauteng, and you know, I was basically, you know, planning to stay there, and then all of a sudden this call came from Mthatha, you know, asking me to join them there, to basically relocate and start a new life in a new province altogether. And you know, that thought really, you know, hit me hard, to think that, you know, there's a possibility of
Oh, Donovan, your sound is... there we go.
Yeah.
No, we seem to have lost Donovan, unfortunately, coming and going a bit there. So Donovan, I don't know if you can hear me, but we seem to have lost you completely for the moment. So I'm going to switch over to someone else in the meantime. So Edward, let's come across to you.
Yeah, when we were set this sort of problem, question, whatever it is, I found it really, really difficult to come up with anything. It's the first time I've been stumped, and which is strange, because listening to Lee, I went through exactly the same thing of not ever saying no because of a sense of duty, that sort of thing. And then my moment came when I almost let someone down badly because I'd taken too much on. But I wanted to look at it from a business perspective this morning, which I don't normally do. When I was a distributor, I used to distribute running and outdoor goods. And very often we'd say no to a customer because we'd realise that that customer would be very hard to service. They'd take a lot of our time up. We wouldn't get much profit out of them. And I'd much rather sell to 2 or 3 more customers that I could have done in the time it would take to service that customer. And I think some people find that strange, saying no to customers. But not all customers are profitable or worth having, really. And we also used to say no to suppliers. Sometimes manufacturers would come to us and say, you know, we'd like you to sell our stuff. And we'd say no, because we knew that their expectations we couldn't meet. You know, the fit wasn't right. And if we sold their stuff, you know, several months down the line, they'd be disappointed. We'd have put lots of effort and money into onboarding the product, promoting the product, and we wouldn't have been delivering the service they wanted. So we used to say no to some suppliers. We'd always try and point them in the right direction to someone else that would help them out. And I think it is that thing of saying, you know, it's right to say no to customers. It's right to say no to business opportunities if they aren't right for you. So yeah, that's my take on saying no.
Right, thanks. Yeah, I think it's absolutely important to have that kind of clarity. And I must admit, I grappled with the question myself. So yeah, we'll have to see how other people have done. So Stella, let's pop across to you.
Morning, everyone. So Lee, I can so resonate with what you were saying. For me, I think it took me a long time to realize, why am I doing this? Why am I always saying yes to everyone? And I think it's the turning point for me, although I'm still working on it, to say no, because I just find it difficult not to help anybody if they ask me for something, is when after my divorce, I went into therapy. And there we dig so deep into myself and the reasons why we do certain things. And one of the things that came out was that I had this sense of responsibility for, I would take a responsibility on of other people that is not my responsibility to take. And that is why I'm saying yes. And I'm still trying to work through it. And it really originated from I'm the eldest child, and my parents had to get married. In those days, I mean, more than 50 years ago, it was very different if a lady got pregnant. And not being married. So when I was about 10, 12 years old, I did the calcs, realizing my parents got married in December and I was born in May. So, and then I, for a very long time, whenever my parents would fight or there was tension in the house, I would take it on me to think, it's my fault, they had to get married because of me. And I think that false sense of responsibility that you take on yourself, later I think also it went through into my marriage. If my husband did things wrong, I would try and cover up for him, make excuses, take it on me to prevent him from doing certain things. And I think that, it's, so now I'm able to, because I know where it's coming from, now you can actually work on it to not fall into the same trap again. So it's still a long journey for me. I'm getting better at it, at saying no. It depends on the situation and who's asking, so. Oh, that's my piece today. Thanks.
Thanks, Stella. Yeah. Right, Jasper, let's get across to you.
I think, like Edward, I wrestled with my response. I just need to check someone going out. I wrestled with my response, but I think I clarified it for myself, and I tried to think of a specific example. And it wasn't so much saying no to something as it was easy to walk away from it, or because I was already involved in that situation. So the thing that immediately jumped to my mind as an example was in 1995, I was in the middle of call it a strong personal growth period, and trying to find answers to a whole lot of things. But in our church, we were going through a tough time where just prior to that, a few years ago, the previous pastor left, another pastor came, and the numbers dwindled, where we ended up at one stage with myself and about three other people. And because I can play a bit of guitar, I ended up being the song leader, the pastor, everything, just to keep the doors open until they can sort out the thing. Then we find another pastor, and this number started to grow. But because I was in that leadership position, I ended up being the chief cook and bottle washer anyway, chairman, song leader, etc. And because you have that strong sense of responsibility, you carry on with it. And but then I attended my first International Christian Chamber of Commerce conference, and it was such a wow experience and an impact, meeting people that are operating at such a level of, call it a spirituality or a personal walk of clarity in the business world. And what I learned in that one weekend had such an impact on me. I remember driving away from that conference that Sunday afternoon. I immediately phoned the pastor, and I immediately canceled all my positions in the church, and I just became an attendee. And it has been the case since then. So it was literally for me to make time for the things that I felt I was called into as a next phase. Yeah, so I think that's the one example that stands out, and it's very easy for me nowadays to say no to stuff because I have such a strong sense of where I need to go, that unless it fits in with what I want to do or where I feel myself being called into, it's an automatic no. And I mean, even since the chamber on, I've been flooded with so-called business opportunities, but now that one have clarity, it's easy to say no to stuff, because you know that it's not a bad opportunity, but it's a bad opportunity for me. It's not something that I would like to be part of or that I could add value to.
Thanks, Jasper. And I see Cecile is enjoying stroking Trevor's cat. So Cecile, let's come across to you.
Oh my guys. I guess I also struggle to try and think what do I say no to, but then in the night I remembered clearly, this is my thing that I said no to that changed probably a lot of people's lives, my family's life. When I was married to Andre for 21 years, and he didn't drink really much. Then he started playing squash, and he started becoming a social drinker. And within 2 years, I knew this is not good. He was probably an alcoholic, and that what cemented it to me is he had his own business at that time, and my daughter was 13 and my son was 10, and I was working as a national sales manager, so I was out of Johannesburg quite a lot. I was traveling a lot, and then one day I was home, and Cindy was swimming in a gala, and Andre said that he couldn't come to the gala because he had some work responsibilities. So I went to Cindy's gala. She was 13. She was just turned 13. Well, she was just before 13. She was in standard 6. So the two of us went to the gala. She swam in the gala. We came back. And when I came back, Andre was lying on the couch, and half a bottle of sleeping in the middle of the day, and half a bottle of beer was standing on the couch next to him. And my normally placid, happy-go-lucky, well-adjusted daughter got so angry. She grabbed the bottle of beer, poured it over him, and then I realized they knew what was happening at home when I wasn't there. He was drinking in the day when they would come home from school and stuff like that. And just there and then, I said no more, not on my watch. I am not subjecting my children to this tough love, because I don't know if any of you know it, but if you live in a house with an alcoholic, there's one person that drinks and don't drink and drink and don't drink, but the rest of the family are all non-drinking alcoholics, because Stella, like you said, everyone covers up for him and all that kind of stuff. So that was when I said no more, not on my watch. And immediately I started divorce proceedings. It was tough, I knew I was going to be a single mom with a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old, but I said no, and it changed our lives. It changed their lives. It changed his life. He couldn't understand it because he was fantastic when he wasn't drinking and clever and everything else. But I just couldn't put my children through that. So that's my no story.
Sure. Thanks, Cecile. Yeah, really tough thing to have to do and have to go through, and sometimes really not easy to make those decisions. So yeah, well done for that. Jeffrey, let's get across to you.
Yeah, morning, everyone. Gosh, I'm sitting here thinking, listening to people talking, and I'm going, when has Jeffrey actually said no to somebody? And gee whiskers, now, I can't ultimately think of ever actually saying no. I think, look, many of us and listening have always, there's that, well, yeah, we've all had that sense of responsibility, older brother, always helping little brother. I mean, even today, my younger brother, my little brother passed away many, many years ago, 30 odd years ago, but my now younger brother, I always help him, even if it's to go and pick up his cup of tea that I've just made him and pass it to him because he's a little bit hefty and he can't be bothered to move. So yeah, I've always said yes. And whether that's been negative to me, I really don't know, to be honest. From a business point of view, I've never really been in a position to say no. One does often, do what one needs to do. And I suppose at the end of the day, you're often just sort of chasing money, which of course isn't the right thing to do. But, I'm off to a meeting shortly, and somebody that I met last week is a whole story. But anyway, and, so now I've got to go price on creating some video material for this guy. And the first thing he said is, we've got no money. We had one made and they charged us $2,000, but it isn't very good. So what are you going to charge me? So can I walk away from this job if it's a small amount of money? No, but yeah, I suppose it's something we always wrestle with. No, I don't think I really made any sense or had any contribution this morning, but yeah, anyway, that's about the best that I can come up with. All right, time out.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Yeah, I think it is sometimes extremely hard to say no, and I think as Jasper said earlier, if you can find that sense of clarity, what is good business and what is bad business, and be able to say no to the bad business quickly, so you don't get caught into that spiral of having to deliver something and it just doesn't become worth your while. You don't make any money. In fact, probably wind up costing you. So I think it's key to learn those decisions and get them right. Right, Trevor, let's get across to you. Can't say no to his cat this morning, so.
Yeah, and I don't like the end that she's pointing at me. Listen, just on that comment of a point of clarity, I actually think this COVID-19 has pushed us all to the pinnacle of a point of clarity. And I love what Jeffrey had to say there, because I think everyone has got to evaluate what it is they're actually doing. And I'm going to mention this word scale. We have to think a lot bigger than we ever thought before to get a return on the time and effort that we're putting into things. Okay, I'm going to park that. But this point of no, yesterday I turned around and I said, Richard Branson talked about the answer is yes, what's the question? And I said, I like that. And then Ivan ended up for me. He didn't like what I said. So he said, I can say no at the drop of a hat. And I thought, okay, yeah, well, I can. I don't stuff around. I don't like stuffing around. And I know when things have got to be cut. But my most significant no's were basically when I was around 12, 13. And it was when I was starting to mix with individuals. So I was a pretty big, small boy. And so I was mixing with individuals that were 2 to 3 years older than me, but we were in the same sort of size. And these guys were all into, I wasn't in the best of schools. So I was the only non-drug addict amongst drug addicts. And I'm talking at least 400, 500. The Dagga was the entry drug of the day. I also came out of at that particular time watching my old man, who was obviously a Navy man out of the Second World War, and he was a smoker, would smoke 40 to 60 cigarettes a day. I hated it. And thank goodness he did that, because I absolutely hated that. And I refused to actually get involved with my mates into drugs. It was an absolute no, to the point of actually having to stand and box. And so the no's stood me in good stead, because I had to stand my ground and actually had to box there, which allowed me to be the type of individual that could say no and not worry about other individuals hitting back. So those no's were very important to me. I've never touched a cigarette. I have never touched a drug. I have been deeply involved with individuals who are drug addicts. I'm a Point Road boy, so you must know, I know Point Road better than some of the harlots there. In Point Road, I know what happens. That's where I actually grew up and lived on the beach over that period of time. So a very formative time period, where if I'd have just succumbed to any of that, I wouldn't be here today. Simple as that. And all I want to share out of this, for anyone that might be listening to it, a youngster of any kind, do not get involved in grass. Don't smoke. Don't do marijuana. Don't let these people turn around and say they're actually safe. They are not. I've seen them physically, my own mates, not in 10s, not in 50s, but in 100s, get dragged down by this rubbish. You don't need it. Go and do the things that you actually want to do. It's the best no I ever did. So now I've made it to around 65. And I have people turning around to me and saying, listen, your blood pressure is going to go through the roof. Maybe what you should do is go and get some grass and drop it. You've got to be crazy, you blooming twits. No.
Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, I don't know where we can go after that, but yeah. Yeah, I think from my side, as I said earlier, I really grappled with this question as well, because I think I say yes far too often as well. Although I have got better at saying no as I've got a bit older. But yeah, there are a couple of no's that stood out when I was sort of going through it in my head, and I have to wonder if I'd said yes under those circumstances, how things would have changed. And the first was as a 21-year-old, I think it was, I'd said no to going to university after school, even though I qualified to get into university. I decided it wasn't for me, so I said no to that. And then a couple of years later, I actually got offered a bursary by a very large, the MD of a very large construction company here in South Africa, and I said no to that again. And I sometimes wonder if I had said yes to that, would my life have taken a very different path? I don't know. Does it matter? And I think that's perhaps why I don't remember the no's, because once you've said no, it's gone. It's done and dusted. Is there any point in actually thinking about it any further? And I don't know that there is. Yeah, and the second one was sort of in line with what I think Jeffrey and Edward sort of alluded to from a business point of view. There was a time in the early 2000s where we were building an organization. We had a number of companies in a holding company, which I was chairing. And in one of our board meetings, one of my co-directors and shareholders said right in the board meeting that he didn't trust me. So I said, okay, well, if that's the case, then we dismantle this whole thing. And I just took it all apart. That's it. If you prepare to make a statement like that, then it doesn't work. You just dismantle it and you move on. So those those are the two ones that have really stood out. So eventually, when I got around to thinking about no's, but yeah, beyond that, I just hope I'm getting better at it as time goes by. I suppose the one other one that does come to mind is when my elder daughter went to school. And she had special needs. She was Down syndrome. We took her to a special needs school, I looked at this environment and the way they were operating, and I wasn't happy with it. And again, it's a strange way to say no, but I actually said yes to becoming chairman. Well, in fact, I said no to joining the board unless they made me chairman. And the reason was I wanted to change the way they were operating, change the way they were delivering the service. And so I said no to what they were doing and yes to becoming the chairman, to which I was for 8 years after that. So those are my stories. So Lee, back to you.
Yeah, it's amazing. You just ask a simple question and they get these incredible stories of such power and depth and wisdom, and just so appreciate people sharing and offering their life experience. And I'm appreciative that it's being recorded, because, you know, I keep telling my daughters, come join us, you'd love it, because we have these kinds of discussions. And of course they don't. So just the fact that we can record it and I can say, well, listen to the YouTube, they're much more likely to listen to that. So I do think this is wisdom that can be passed on, just because we've willing to share to this depth and level, and put a little bit of thought into it, and then offer it to others. So thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. For Monday, I was struck by, in our previous conversations, by Mpumelelo saying, I want to run Comrades. And somebody saying, oh, well, you know, I've run Comrades, or there are a couple of people here who can run Comrades. So the question is not how we run Comrades. But the question is, if you have a big goal, you've got something, Trevor's talking about scale, but it's something that is bigger than you, something that you know is, I think of Jasper's dreams and goals of influencing not just the next generation, but the following generation. These are big dreams and goals. How do you do it? How do you do it? What does it take? What does it take to achieve something really significant? And it might be Comrades, but it might be even greater and bigger than that. So I'd love to get your insights and thoughts around, how do you get a really huge, old Anthony Robbins used to call this big, hairy, audacious goal. How do you get that? How do you get that done? And then I'm going to give you a heads up, Edward. You've listened to Kevin's story, and if you go back into some of our other, into the Wisdom's YouTube channel, you'll listen to some of the other stories. Nozipo's told her story, Mpumelelo. They are incredibly rich and amazing stories. Just to give you a sample, but I'm now looking at you and saying, would you be willing to share your story with us?
It would be rude not to.
I put you in such a spot now.
Say no, Edward. Say no.
I was going to practice saying no, but I'm not very good at it, so yes.
So I've got you at just the right place. So sometime next week, sort of maybe the middle of the week, if we will turn to you, and but at least you've got the weekend to think about it and put something together. So thanks everybody. We will see you on Monday.
Great, thanks Lee, and think about your BHAGs, big hairy audacious goals over the weekend, and we'll chat on Monday morning. Have a good one. Cheers now.